Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi. Sorry for the delay. I got delayed about 15 extra minutes at work, so everything starts 15 minutes later. And a couple of things. First off, I want to just show you the latest Houston radar. And you can see that they're just getting hammered with rain again back in the same areas that have gotten hammered with the first big round of 1 to 2 feet. And when I would notice that the rainfall rates, by the way, were running at about 1 to 2 inches an hour with all of this, which is just, it's really, it's at the point now where it's almost, it's hard for me to even visualize it. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the system in the east, which when we look at the satellite view, if you look at it, it is becoming less and less of a tropical system and more like a typical mid to late fall nor'easter that's going to develop out of this as it moves east of the Carolinas and south of the Canadian Maritimes. And it does look like the rain might get a little further north to, say, central New Jersey and Long Island, maybe to New York City for a short time. My initial idea was that it would just maybe get into southern New Jersey for a short time, but it might push a little bit further to the north. Being that it's less tropical in nature, the rain shield is going to have an opportunity to expand further north. We have an onshore flow, so that's going to feed in some low-level moisture as well. And of course, you can see the signature of Harvey here in the Gulf of Mexico. The actual center, and you'll see it on a tight view in just a little bit, is way down out here in the dark gray with the low clouds. There's very little convection going on in and around where the circulation center is. All the heavy convection is on land, and that's where we would kind of hope it wouldn't be after what's been going on. We're also going to talk about, because everybody's already talking about it, I'm going to have some opinions about this next wave that's moving off the African coast, and some upper air stuff that's going on that's rather interesting. So that'll be also what we're covering tonight. So stand by and we'll get it going. The rains just go on and on and on in southeast Texas. It has been pouring at the rate of 1 to 2 inches an hour across much of the Galveston-Houston corridor and extending southwestward from there. You can see the circulation around Harvey, which is out in the ocean. Now, there have been little bands of showers and storms forming out close to the center, but they're widely scattered. The main area of rain continues to be along and then, of course, inland, and they're just getting hammered here. Just to give you an idea with the volume of rain, Houston is about 8,700 square miles. They have received, with 25 inches of rain, amounts to 4 trillion gallons of water just in this square area alone. I mean, that's just, I can't even fathom that amount of water. It's just incredible. And it's going to go on all night and into tomorrow morning. The center of Harvey out in the Gulf of Mexico. But when we look at the satellite loop, you're going to see on the infrared, here's the center right down in here. You see right there with that curl? All these low clouds here, it doesn't have that core of thunderstorms that it did when it was a developing tropical storm and then, of course, a hurricane. And this is one of the reasons why it's having trouble strengthening. Also, the fact that the water temperatures here have dropped down into the low 80s and even to near 80 in some places because of all the upwelling. So it could strengthen maybe a little bit, but the bottom line here is the main effect, even though there are some winds to gale force along the coast that have fired up, it's the rain that's going to be the story here. And it's another 48 hours before the center makes landfall somewhere in southeast Texas, and the rains will continue to shift northeast from there. And I think some of those remnant rains may actually get to the New York, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, southern New England area, maybe later Saturday night and on Sunday, depending on how it reacts with the next upper air trough that's coming down. Just absolutely incredible here. And here are the rainfall amounts on the Doppler radar. And, from earlier today, that area of white, which indicates 25 inches or more. I wish they had a higher grade for 30 and 35 inches, because those numbers have been surpassed in many areas. There are going to be some 40 to 50 inch total amounts when this is all said and done. But look how the area has expanded, almost, but not quite, to Beaumont. Beaumont's in the 18-inch range in the lighter purple. And then you get to the 21 and then the 25, which is this whole white area that extends onto the west side of Houston and on up to Byron, Texas, where they've had as much as 18 inches of rain. So, I mean, just really ridiculous amounts. And I'll just get the Lake Charles storm totals, and you can see the extent here. That's some 25-inch amounts in parts of southern Louisiana, southwestern Louisiana, near Cameron, Port Arthur on the Texas side, getting in the 25-inch area, as well as Orange, and on north and west of there. So just phenomenal amounts. And for those of you curious about New Orleans so far, the rainfall amounts have been on the order of 1 to 2 inches. So once you get east of Lafayette toward Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and in southeast Louisiana, the rains have been far less there. Now let's switch to the possible tropical cyclone, which I think is becoming less and less possible off the southeast coast of the United States. The problem here is when you look at the center, the actual center is down in this area here, and it's elongated northeast southwest. There's very little going on around it. This is not the signature of a tropical system, but the signature of a non-tropical system. And while there are heavy rains, to me, it looks like this is going to behave more like a late fall, early spring or wintertime nor'easter, in a sense, as it moves up the coast along the Carolinas and then makes that turn to the east. And I think I have a radar here that I can show you. So yes, I do. So we'll go to the radar, and you'll notice you go south and west of this area. Here's where all the heavier rains are. There's some heavy rains in parts of North Carolina, but then it kind of scatters away as you move into South Carolina and on south and west. There's very little going on where the circulation center is. So we're going to just basically treat this going forward as a more of a non-tropical system. And with respect to the model tracks, you can see they're all basically east-northeast from the Carolinas, south of Newfoundland, and then out into the Atlantic as a extra tropical, or maybe it'll be partially tropical gale center. So that will be I think it with that. And I'll show you the Harvey model plots, and you can see if we follow the ensembles, you can just follow the black line, which is sort of the mean position, out in the Gulf of Mexico, coming inland, and then going northeast into western Tennessee as we head toward the end of the week and into the weekend. So at least we're finally going to get the body of the system out of here and start to distribute the rain a little more evenly and with less veracity than what we've seen, of course, down in through Texas. And the model plots with respect to the hurricane tracks, they're all pretty much the same now. For the most part, an easterly track that then turns northeast toward northeast Texas, southwest Louisiana, and then northeastward from there. So another couple of days of this, or a little bit more, another 3 days of this before things really start to wind down and Texas can begin slowly but surely drying out. Let's look at the models now and see what we can come up with respect to the GFS. And I'm going to start off with the we'll just use the east, because there really isn't much happening out in the west. But there's our soon to be, I think, non-tropical low as time is running out. And here's Harvey. So let's look at Harvey first. This is the new GFS, by the way. and it kind of straddles it in the coast, brings it inland, and then northeast into Arkansas. Another big high comes in at the end of the week into the northeast. So see that blue line here, this 540 line? That's what we call a thickness line in the atmosphere. Basically gives us an idea of just how cold the atmosphere is, how thick the cold layer is. And it's usual in the wintertime, we look at that 540 line, believe it or not, as the rain-snow line. So that's some very cool air that's coming down Thursday night into Friday morning into New England and into the northeast with that high. So it's going to be a quick shot of cool air that moves on in. And with respect to the system off the East Coast, there it is on the GFS running. The GFS is taking it a little more northeast, and it does graze New Jersey and Long Island and southern New England with some rain with this. And the wind, of course, it'll get a little breezy and it'll get windy offshore, so there will be gales out in the coastal waters. This develops into a rather deep gale center as it goes by, and runs south of Nova Scotia. And let me show our Nova Scotia, Newfoundland viewers. We'll give you the, you know what, let's go back. I'll give you the North Atlantic view. That's a little better. And here we go. Where is it? Actually, that was the North Atlantic view. Okay. So here we go. It kind of grazes Nova Scotia with rain and also southeastern Newfoundland, but for the most part it stays offshore. And you'll notice, by the way, here's another system that's coming off the African coast now, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I want to go to the upper air first, and I want to switch to the European. So here's our cold shot for Friday. We have this big vortex that drops down in eastern Canada and brings down that shot of cold air. That's going to pull out, and then another trough is going to swing through here on Sunday. You can see it right there, this northwest, southeast oriented trough. So it's a negatively tilted arm that's swinging around, and that's going to bring another cold front through, and that's where the remnants of Harvey will probably get absorbed. Now, that trough, then just part of that trough pulls out, but then another part of it back through here in north of Lake Superior gets really energized. And as we go later in the period on the European, we have a deep trough along the East Coast, and this is the representation of the tropical system. Now, I don't want you to take this literally. I want to just show you, I've said a number of times that to bring something up the East Coast, you need to have a trough that really kind of looks like this one, okay? And you have to have the tropical system timing out so that it meets that trough. What we don't know in terms of the variables here, first of all, this is 10 days out, so highly suspect to begin with. But let's just say that for the sake of argument that there is going to be some troughing in the east. At the same time that there's going to be some kind of tropical system moving westward or west-northwestward. Here are the keys to all this going forward. Of course, we're going to have to ask ourselves the question, is that trough going to be as amplified as it is? I have to tell you, for early September, that you don't see troughs amplified like this. This is a really, really strong, deep upper air trough that's being signaled by the European. That's going to be one question. Another question is going to be this ridge. The European has a very strong ridge sitting just northeast of Bermuda. So that would, at least for a while, keep this system from turning and moving out to the north and then northeast. But we don't know if the ridge going to be that strong. By comparison, has the same kind of trough, but it's fast. Well, it doesn't even have the same kind of trough, really. No, it did have it. I'm looking at the new one. I'm sorry. Let me just go back a run. I forgot that it jumps to the new run. Okay, so the GFS is going to show the same type of idea, and you can see it right there. Only the GFS's ridge there's two things different here with the GFS. One is that the trough for the same time frame is faster and a little further east, and this ridge is a little further northeast than where the European has it. So the GFS has a weakness that would take this thing probably near, let me just punch that up, it would probably recurve it near or just east of 70 west, if that's right. Okay, the Canadian model, surprisingly enough, when we look at the Canadian model going out, this is a new one, so let me just get to the old one. The Canadian model, lo and behold, also has the deep trough, but the Canadian model doesn't really develop the system as well as the GFS and European develops it, and also the trough is a little more fractured on the Canadian, and it's a little further along. So this to me would imply that if there's one system, or maybe there's two, but let's just say that there's one, the ridge on the Canadian is much even further east than the other two models, and this would suggest that anything that's out there would recurve. So you can see that you're going to hear stuff about this, and I just want to put it in perspective for you right now. You know, that was just like the early print. Who knows where it's going to be over the coming days, but we'll keep an eye on it, and I'll give you the satellite view of it. This is the wave in question. It's a very well-developed wave with a low-pressure center already near the Cabo Verde Islands, and you can see it here. There's a little bit of curvature to it. Perhaps it looked a little better organized earlier than it does now, but there is a fairly impressive concentration of showers and storms just south of the Cabo Verde Islands. So we'll just keep an eye on it and see how it goes. We'll in the meantime pay more attention to Harvey, which is continuing to hammer Texas. Again, here's the very latest radar view with the torrential rains, another big band of torrential rains moving inland and heading toward Houston for the rest of the overnight hours. And there's the satellite loop of Harvey right here. I think I mistakenly might have punched up the other one, but let me just see. Yep, I did. I'm sorry. It's getting late at night. I'm a little bit tired, but you can see Harvey there, southeast of the Gulf Coast. And here's the less potential non-tropical system. You know what? At this point, if it hasn't become a tropical storm now, I don't think it will. It just really looks, again, more like an old-fashioned noreaster type storm that's going to be developing once it goes east of the Carolinas. All right, folks, going to end it here for the overnight. Have a great Tuesday ahead, and we'll see you during the day Tuesday. I have the day off, so I will put up a couple of live streams at perhaps more convenient times, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.